Hello, this is a brief supplemental video for Music 110, and in it I will be covering why we mix down. So mixing down is already covered in a couple of other videos in this class, but I wanted to make sure that we really talked about the process of mixing down, the different file types that are involved, and why it's really important to keep track of the difference between your digital audio workstation file and the audio file that you mix down. So, in order to demonstrate all this, let's take a look at this folder that I have open in front of you right now. So in this folder, I have two files. One is this file highlighted right here called mixdown. This is a Studio One file. So the file extension is .song. So this is a .song file. Now the thing about a .song file, and really this is true for .song files as Studio One files, but this will be true for any digital audio workstation. Any digital audio workstation is going to, when you save your work, it's going to save that to a file that has a file extension that is specific to that application or that program. So when I save my work in Studio One to a .song file, if I were to try to open that file up, say in Audacity, Audacity would not be able to open it. Only Studio One can open up .song files. Okay, so we have files that are digital audio workstation files, which aren't really audio files. They're files that are specific to those audio editing programs that you're using, digital audio workstations. On the other hand, there are audio files. Now, here is an example of an audio file that I have in this folder. So this is a WAV file. So this would be the request line vocal.wav. Now, the difference between an audio file or a WAV file and a digital audio workstation file or a Studio One song file is that audio files are universally openable in audio programs. So there's no particular application or program that is associated with a WAV file. Any audio program, whether it's Studio One, whether it's Audacity, whether it's iTunes, whatever, they know how to open up these file types that have a .wav extension on them. So these are universally openable, while song files are not. Only Studio One can open song files. Okay. So now, as we know, in Studio One, we can drop WAV files into Studio One and then edit them. So this is what we've done in a couple of discussion posts. This is what you're working on for your collage assignment. And what I'm going to do in just a second is I'm going to open up this Studio One file and I'm going to drag and drop this WAV file into it. Before I do that, though, I want us to note the size of these two files. So over here on the left, over here on the right, you'll see that my Studio One file is 10 kilobytes. And you'll see that my WAV file is 76,320 or 312 kilobytes, or 1 megabyte is 1,000 kilobytes. So this is a little over 76 megabytes. So remarkably larger than the Studio One file. The Studio One file is only 10 kilobytes, and the WAV file is 76,000 kilobytes. Okay, so I'm going to open up this mixdown file, this Studio One file. And you will see that it is an empty session. There's no audio in here at all. There's no tracks, there's no audio. Now, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to grab this WAV file. Again, that is 76,312 kilobytes. I'm going to drop it in here. Okay. Now, I'm going to click Save on in the Studio One session. I have dropped in this data, this WAV file, right? That is quite large, 76,312 kilobytes. So I want you to pay attention to what happens to the size of the Studio One file when I click Save. Okay, so I added all this data in this WAV file, 76,312 kilobytes, to my 10 kilobyte Studio One file. I saved it, and the size of the Studio One file went up by only 1 kilobyte. Okay, so what this is a demonstration of is how Studio One is dealing with audio data. Studio One, in order to be efficient, is not copying this audio that is in the WAV file that I dragged and dropped. So it's not making a new set of data. It's not making a new file. If it were, every time I would drag and drop, if it was just making copy if the audio files were just being copied every time I drop audio files into Studio One, I would quickly start using up all of my disk space. And it would be redundant, right? Because this audio is already saved to my computer. So what Studio One is doing when I drop it in here is it just takes note of where on my hard drive this audio is saved to, and then it's just accessing it, right? So I'm not the Studio One file does not become larger. Now, what's really important to note about this is not only can .song files only be opened up in Studio One. In other words, other programs other than Studio One cannot open up song files. Studio One files technically do not contain any audio. They just contain instructions of where to find the audio on the computer. Okay? So what that means is that if I were to save this mixdown file, like I just did, and then let's say I were to email it to you, and I would say, hey, listen to this. Even if you had Studio One, so if you had Studio One and you opened up the song file that I sent to you, it would be able to open up, but it would not be able to access any audio because Studio One would be looking for this WAV file, the request line vocal, in this folder, right? It has a set of instructions of where to find the file, and it would be looking for it, but it would be on your computer. And if you didn't also save this WAV file to your computer, it wouldn't be able to find it, and so it wouldn't be able to play back this audio. So the reason that digital audio workstation files are set up this way or function this way is so that we aren't creating like redundant copies of data, and we aren't running out of disk space really quickly. But that also means that Studio One files by themselves have no audio data. They just have directions on where to find the audio data. Okay, now let's talk about mixing down. All right, so let's say I'm going to mix down, and just to help with demonstrating the difference here, I'm going to shorten this audio to here and shorten the loop to there. And I'm going to mix this down, and I'm going to do that by clicking on the song drop-down menu, and then I'm going to click on Export Mixdown. This gives me this pop-up menu, and it's automatically going to save my mixdown to the folder where I saved the Studio One session to. Great. I'm going to call this mixdown. I'm going to call this, I'll just call this take one. I'm going to mix down to between the loop. That's what I want to mix down. Though I could select between start and end marker, between different markers. But I'm just going to mix down where I put the loop, so the part of the portion of the timeline where my loop is located. And I'm going to click OK. Great. Okay, so now we can see that the Studio One file is still only 11 kilobytes. From within Studio One, as you can remember, I shortened the length of the audio by about half, and then I mixed that down. And we can see that when I mixed down to WAV file, we ended up with a 38 megabyte mixdown, which makes sense. It's about half the length of the overall audio. Okay, so what does this all mean for you? If you are posting to a discussion board, let me start that again. If I were posting the results here to a discussion board, and I uploaded to my discussion post the .song file, no one would be able to hear anything because there isn't any audio there. However, if I were to upload this take one, the mixdown that I created, anyone would be able to listen to that, whether they're on Mac or PC, whether they're using Studio One to listen, or whether they're using iTunes to listen, or whatever it is that they're using to listen. So what the mixdown has done, it has created a new file, a new WAV file that is separate from the Studio One file. Okay, so moving forward, it's important to keep track of where your audio is being saved to. When you're using audio and adding it to Studio One, I really recommend being very organized with where you're saving all of this audio to, so keep it all in the same folder. I might even keep two different folders, one for the audio that I'm mixing and collaging, and another folder for my mixdowns. That way I don't get super confused when I start looking at all these different WAV files on my computer. And you'll know now how to distinguish between the audio that you are seeing in Studio One and the audio that you are the audio that is the result of the mixing of those WAV files into a new WAV file, your end result, your creative product. Great. Hopefully this will clear up some things on the differences between file types, mixdowns, and .song files, and I'm looking forward to hearing your work on the sound collage in a couple weeks. All right. Have a great day. Goodbye.